I'm sitting on a concrete staircase in downtown Boston's financial district on my 58th birthday, and everything I own in this world is packed into two battered suitcases beside me. 3 hours ago, my son Marcus threw those suitcases onto the sidewalk of his mansion in Beacon Hill, looked me straight in the eyes, and said words I'll never forget. "Happy birthday, Mom. Now disappear from my life." His wife Daphne stood behind him in the doorway, phone raised, filming the whole thing with this satisfied smile on her perfectly made-up face. I could see her mentally composing the caption for her Instagram post. Something about setting healthy boundaries or protecting your peace from toxic family. She has 450,000 followers who eat up that kind of content. I wonder if she'll actually post it, or if even she has some limit to her cruelty. I didn't cry then. I was too shocked. I just stood there on their pristine front lawn while their security guard, an actual security guard my son hired to escort his own mother out, waited to make sure I left the property. I picked up my suitcases, walked to the end of their tree-lined street, and kept walking until my arms ached and I couldn't go any further. That's how I ended up here, on these steps, watching the evening crowd of business people rush past me like I'm invisible. Which I suppose I am now. A 58-year-old woman with gray blonde hair that hasn't been professionally styled in months, wearing a sweater that's seen better days, sitting with luggage like she's waiting for a bus that will never come. People glance at me and quickly look away. Nobody wants to see their own possible future staring back at them. I check my phone out of habit, though I know what I'll find. $23.16 in my bank account. No missed calls. No messages. The friends I used to have, the network I spent 30 years building in the luxury marketing world, they all vanished over the past 6 months. Daphne made sure of that with her carefully crafted social media campaign, painting me as some kind of manipulative parasite living off her husband's success. The irony burns worse than the hunger in my stomach. Marcus's success, his entire company, was built on $340,000 of my money. Money I earned over 2 decades of work, building brands for European fashion houses and Swiss jewelry companies. Money I liquidated every single investment to give him when he came to me 18 months ago with those bright, hopeful eyes, talking about his revolutionary fintech startup. "It's a loan, Mom," he'd said, hugging me for the first time in years. "When the company takes off, you'll have 30% equity, I promise." I should have gotten it in writing. I should have hired lawyers. But he was my son. And for that brief moment, I thought we were finally connecting after all the years of distance between us. After all the damage from my divorce from his father, after all my guilt about working too much during his childhood, this felt like a chance to help him and rebuild our relationship at the same time. Stupid. So incredibly stupid. A gust of cold November wind cuts through my sweater and I pull my coat tighter. It's getting dark. I need to figure out where I'm sleeping tonight. The homeless shelters I called earlier were all full. The motels I can afford with $23 don't exist. I tried calling the few acquaintances who haven't blocked my number, but nobody picked up. Can't blame them, really. Who wants to deal with someone else's catastrophic life failure? I'm still sitting here, trying to formulate some kind of plan, when I notice a little girl a few steps above me. She can't be more than 8 or 9 years old, wearing a vintage-style dress that looks expensive but is dirty around the hem. She's crying quietly, the kind of careful crying kids do when they're trying not to draw attention to themselves. My maternal instinct kicks in before my rational mind can stop it. "Honey, are you okay?" I ask, turning to look at her properly. "Are you lost?" She doesn't answer, just keeps crying with her face in her hands. I look around for a parent, a guardian, anyone who might be with her, but the crowd flows past without slowing. Nobody else seems to notice her at all. I reach into my purse and pull out the last of my food, a French baguette I bought this morning when I still had $27. It was supposed to be my dinner, maybe breakfast tomorrow too, if I broke it into small pieces. But looking at this child, alone and upset, I can't just sit here eating while she suffers. Here, sweetheart, I say gently, holding out the bread. You must be hungry. Take this. The little girl's hands drop from her face, and she looks at me with these incredibly perceptive eyes, far too wise for her age. She stares at the bread, then at me, then back at the bread. For a long moment, she doesn't move. I extend the baguette closer to her. It's okay. I'm not hungry anyway. A lie, obviously. But what else can I do? She's a child. Whatever I'm going through, she needs this more than I do. She takes the bread slowly, still watching my face like she's searching for something. Then she does the strangest thing. She stops crying completely, sits up straighter, and says in a clear voice, "You passed. Grandpa will be proud." What? I'm so surprised I almost laugh. What do you mean, sweetheart? Where is your grandpa? Before she can answer, a man appears at the top of the staircase. He's somewhere in his late 60s, distinguished looking in an immaculate charcoal suit that probably costs more than I used to make in a month. He has silver hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of presence that makes people instinctively straighten their posture. "Mrs. Harper," he says, and his voice is formal, professional, the voice of someone who spends his days in boardrooms and courtrooms. "My name is Benjamin Ashford. I'm an attorney. I need you to come with me immediately, please." I stare at him. My mind races through possibilities. Has Marcus sent a lawyer to serve me with some kind of restraining order? Is this about the lawsuit I tried to file 3 months ago before my money ran out? Am I being accused of something? "I don't understand," I say slowly. "How do you know my name?" "I'll explain everything, but not here." He gestures to a black Mercedes parked at the curb, hazard lights blinking. "Please, Mrs. Harper. Time is of the essence." The little girl stands up, still holding my baguette, and walks to the man without hesitation. He puts a gentle hand on her shoulder. They clearly know each other. This was planned somehow, though I can't imagine how or why. Every instinct I have says this is wrong, potentially dangerous. Strange men don't just appear and know your name and ask you to get in cars. But I look at my suitcases, at the darkening sky, at my bank balance of $23, and I think, what exactly do I have to lose at this point? "Am I in some kind of trouble?" I ask. "Quite the opposite," Benjamin Ashford says, and there's something almost kind in his eyes. "But I really cannot explain on a public street. Please, I give you my word you're not in danger." I stand up, my knees protesting after sitting on cold concrete for hours. I pick up my suitcases, everything I own, and follow this stranger to his Mercedes because apparently this is what my life has become. The little girl climbs into the back seat. I hesitate at the passenger door. "The child," I say. "Is she okay?" She was crying. "Sophia is perfectly fine," he assures me. "She was performing a task for her grandfather. You'll understand soon." He loads my suitcases into the trunk with surprising strength for a man his age, then opens the back door for me. The interior of the car smells like leather and expensive cologne. Sophia sits quietly, no longer crying, eating my baguette with delicate bites. As we pull into traffic, I catch sight of my reflection in the window. I look exhausted, worn down, older than 58. When did I become this person? When did Vivienne Harper, who once consulted for Chanel and Cartier, who built a career from nothing after a devastating divorce, who wore power suits and flew business class to Paris, when did she turn into this broken woman sitting in a stranger's car with no idea where she's going? "Where are you taking me?" I ask, finding my voice. "My office," Benjamin says. "It's 10 minutes from here. My employer has been searching for someone like you for quite some time, Mrs. Harper." "Someone like me?" I almost laugh at the absurdity. "A destitute woman sitting on stairs?" "Someone with genuine kindness," he says simply. "Someone who gives their last piece of food to a crying child without hesitation, even when they're in desperate circumstances themselves." The words hang in the air, and I feel something crack inside my chest. Tears I've been holding back for months, maybe years, suddenly threaten to spill over. I turn my face to the window so neither of them can see. I don't understand what's happening, I whisper. You will, Benjamin promises. Very soon, everything will make sense. We drive through Boston's evening traffic in silence. Sophia finishes the bread and carefully folds the paper bag it came in, placing it neatly on the seat beside her. She catches me watching and gives me a small smile. Thank you for the bread, she says. It was really good. You're welcome, honey, I managed to say. Are you sure you're okay? You seemed so upset. I was acting, she says matter-of-factly. Grandpa needed to know if you were kind. Most people aren't, you know. Most people walked right past me. Some people told me to go away. One lady said I was probably faking it for money. I'm processing this information. A test. It was a test. When Benjamin pulls into an underground parking garage beneath a sleek glass building in the financial district. We take a private elevator to the 15th floor, emerging into a law office that reeks of old money and serious power. Mahogany furniture, Persian rugs, walls lined with leather-bound legal books that probably cost more than my car used to be worth. Please, have a seat, Benjamin says, gesturing to a chair in front of an enormous desk. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Water? Water would be good, I say. My mouth is so dry I can barely speak. He brings me a glass bottle of some fancy mineral water and a crystal glass. I drink half of it in one go while he settles behind his desk. Sophia has disappeared somewhere. Maybe there's a waiting room with toys. I don't know. It's just the two of us now. Mrs. Harper, Benjamin begins, folding his hands on the desk. What I'm about to tell you will sound extraordinary. I ask that you listen to everything before you make any judgments. Okay, I say, because what else is there to say? My client is a man named Theodore Whitmore. He's 91 years old and worth approximately $890 million. He made his fortune in commercial real estate and pharmaceutical patents. Are you familiar with him? I shake my head. The name means nothing to me. Mr. Whitmore had one child, a daughter named Elena. 20 years ago, Elena fell in love with a man her father disapproved of, a public school teacher, decent man but not wealthy, not connected, not what Theodore wanted for his only child. When Elena insisted on marrying him anyway, Theodore cut her off completely. No money, no contact, nothing. He thought she would come back, admit she'd made a mistake, beg for forgiveness. Benjamin pauses, and I can see genuine sadness in his face. She never came back. She was stubborn like her father. She and her husband lived modestly on his teacher's salary. They had a daughter, Sophia, the little girl you met today. 15 years ago, Elena was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. She needed treatment that her husband's insurance didn't cover. She was too proud to ask her father for help. By the time Theodore found out she was sick, it was too late. She died without ever reconciling with him. My hand goes to my mouth. Oh my God. Theodore has lived with that guilt every day since, Benjamin continues. He's 91 now, in declining health, and he's become obsessed with a particular kind of redemption. He wants to find genuinely good people, people who demonstrate real kindness and character, and help them. But more than that, he wants to find someone worthy of his fortune, someone who will use it well after he's gone. And I'm starting to understand, but it's so insane, I can't quite believe it. For the past 3 years, Theodore has been conducting what he calls character tests. Sophia, his granddaughter, Elena's daughter, helps him. They create scenarios where people in various circumstances have the opportunity to show kindness or selfishness. Sophia pretends to be lost, or hurt, or upset. Theodore watches from a distance to see how people react. And I was being tested, I say slowly. On those stairs. Yes. Theodore had his people researching you for several weeks after we became aware of your situation. We knew you'd been financially devastated by your son, that you'd been expelled from his home today, that you were genuinely destitute. Theodore wanted to see what you would do in that state, Would you hoard your last resources for yourself, or would you still help someone you perceived as needing help more? I need Benjamin to stop talking for a moment, because my mind is spinning too fast to process what he's saying. A 91-year-old billionaire has been watching me, testing me? This sounds like something out of a movie, not real life. I don't understand, I say, setting down the water glass before I drop it. How did you even know about me? About what happened with Marcus? Benjamin opens a leather folder on his desk. We have researchers who monitor various situations. Your son's company, Harper Financial Technologies, has been making waves in the fintech world. When we started looking into his background, we discovered the circumstances of his startup funding. Your lawsuit attempt 3 months ago, though unsuccessful, created a public record. We found the pattern of someone who'd been genuinely wronged. The lawsuit. God, that was humiliating. I'd spent my last $7,000 on a lawyer who took one look at the handwritten receipt Marcus gave me and said I had almost no chance of winning. It says gift from mom right here at the bottom, the lawyer had pointed out. Your son's attorneys will argue you're reinterpreting a generous gift as a business transaction after the fact. I tried to explain that Marcus had verbally promised me equity, that he'd called it a loan, that there had been emails discussing my future role in the company. But without formal documentation, without anything in writing that clearly stated terms, I had nothing. The case was dismissed before it even got to trial. That's when things got really bad. Marcus was furious that I'd attempted to sue him. He called me for the first time in months, screaming that I was exactly like Dad said, a manipulative woman who pretends to be generous but always has an agenda. That phone call was 6 weeks ago. I haven't heard from him since, until today when he threw me out. Mrs. Harper? Benjamin's voice pulls me back to the present. Are you all right? I'm sorry, I say. This is just a lot to take in. You said you've been researching me for weeks? Yes, Theodore is very thorough. He doesn't just give away his fortune to anyone. He needs to understand who people really are. Benjamin pulls out several documents from the folder. We know you built your marketing consultancy from scratch after your divorce 12 years ago. We know you specialized in luxury European brands and had an impressive client roster. We know you were making approximately $300,000 annually at your peak. Hearing those numbers now feels like talking about a different person's life. $300,000 a year. I remember what that felt like. The confidence of walking into a Chanel boutique and not looking at price tags. The ease of booking last-minute flights to Zurich or Milan. The security of knowing my retirement was funded and growing. We also know, Benjamin continues more gently, that you liquidated your entire investment portfolio, sold your Back Bay apartment, and gave everything to your son 18 months ago. $340,000. We found the bank transfers. He needed it, I hear myself say, defensive even now. He had this revolutionary idea for algorithmic trading accessible to everyday investors. He just needed capital to get started. The big venture firms weren't interested because he didn't have connections, didn't go to the right schools. I believed in him. You were his mother, Benjamin says. Of course you believed in him. That simple statement cracks something open inside me. Yes, I was his mother. That's what mothers do. We believe in our children even when nobody else does. We sacrifice for them. We give them everything we have because we want them to succeed, to be happy, to have better lives than we did. Can I ask you something personal, Mrs. Harper? Benjamin's tone shifts slightly. Your relationship with Marcus, when did it become so strained? I lean back in the chair, suddenly exhausted. Honestly, I think it's been strained since he was a child. His father and I divorced when Marcus was 14. It was ugly. Thomas, my ex-husband, he's a commercial real estate investor, very successful, very traditional in his views about marriage and gender roles. He hated that I worked, hated that I traveled for business, hated that I had my own career separate from him. The memories flood back, the fights. Thomas shouting that I was abandoning my family, every time I had to fly to Paris or London for a client meeting. Him telling Marcus that Mommy loved her job more than she loved him. The poison he dripped into our son's ear for years. When I finally filed for divorce, Thomas made sure Marcus knew it was my fault, that I'd destroyed our family because I was selfish and career-obsessed. During the custody battle, Thomas told the judge I was an absent mother. He had documentation, all those business trips, all those nights I worked late building my consultancy. The judge gave him primary custody. I got every other weekend and one dinner per week. I can still remember Marcus's face when the judge made that ruling. He was 14 and trying so hard to look like it didn't matter, but I could see the confusion and hurt. I tried to explain that I worked hard for us, to give him opportunities, to build security. But 14-year-old boys don't understand nuance. They just know Mom is leaving and Dad says it's her fault. After the divorce, I threw myself even harder into work, I continue. Partly because I needed the money. Thomas got the house and most of our assets, since he could prove he'd been the primary earner during our marriage. Partly because work was the only place I felt competent and valued. And partly because it was easier than facing how badly I'd failed as a mother. Benjamin listens without interrupting, and there's no judgment in his face, just attention. Marcus and I grew further apart as he got older. He went to college, got his business degree, worked in finance for a few years. We'd have these stiff, formal dinners every few months where we made small talk like strangers. Then 2 years ago, he called me out of nowhere, said he wanted to rebuild our relationship, said he'd been in therapy and realized he'd been unfair to me, that he understood now why I worked so hard. God, I'd been so happy that day, so hopeful. We started having regular dinners. He told me about his startup idea. I felt like I was finally getting my son back. Then he asked for the investment, I say. And I saw it as a chance to help him and prove I believed in him. I sold everything, my apartment, my stocks, my retirement accounts. I gave him $340,000 based on a handwritten receipt and his word that I'd have 30% equity once the company was formalized. Did you ever question that arrangement? Benjamin asks. Of course I did. But every time I brought up getting proper documentation, Marcus would get this hurt look on his face. He'd say things like, "Don't you trust me, Mom?" Or, "I thought we were family, not business partners." He made me feel like asking for legal protection meant I didn't believe in him or our reconciliation. I can see now how manipulative that was, how he used my guilt about our damaged relationship and my desperate desire to fix it against me. But at the time, I just felt grateful he was talking to me again. The company took off faster than anyone expected, I continue. Within a year, they had major clients. Within 14 months, valuation hit $40 million. Marcus was being featured in tech magazines as a young entrepreneur to watch, and I was so proud of him. When did you start asking about your equity stake? Benjamin asks. Around the 1-year mark. I was running low on money. I'd been living off credit cards and odd consulting jobs, but my old clients had mostly moved on. I asked Marcus when we'd formalize the paperwork. He kept saying, "Soon, Mom, the lawyers are working on it." Then he met Daphne. Daphne Sinclair, from one of Boston's old money families. She was everything I wasn't. Young, beautiful, connected, from the right background. She took one look at Marcus's success and his middle-aged mother hanging around asking about money, and she decided I was a problem to be eliminated. Daphne started slowly, I say. First, it was just little comments about how attached I was to Marcus, how I needed to let him be independent. Then she started posting on Instagram about family members who use guilt and manipulation to control successful people. She never named me, but her followers figured it out. My phone started getting messages from people I'd worked with, asking if I was okay, if I really was trying to take advantage of my son. How did Marcus react to this? Benjamin asks. He defended her, said Daphne was just setting boundaries and I was being oversensitive. When I finally pushed hard about the equity paperwork 15 months after my initial investment, Marcus sat me down and told me his lawyers had reviewed everything. The handwritten receipt I signed said, "Gift from Mom" at the bottom. He claimed that was always the understanding. I was gifting him startup capital as a mother supporting her son, not making a business investment. I can still hear his voice saying those words, the casual cruelty of it, the way he looked at me like I was trying to scam him instead of just asking for what he'd promised. I showed him emails we'd exchanged where he talked about our company and my future role and returns on your investment. He said I was misinterpreting friendly language. His lawyers agreed. They said even if we went to court, I'd signed a document calling it a gift, and that would be impossible to overcome. "So you tried to sue anyway," Benjamin says. "I spent my last savings on a lawyer who confirmed I had almost no case. We filed anyway, hoping Marcus would settle just to avoid the publicity. Instead, his legal team crushed it in preliminary hearings. The judge said I had no grounds. That was 3 months ago." "And then you had to ask to live with Marcus and Daphne," Benjamin says, and there's real sympathy in his voice. "I had nowhere else to go, no money for rent. I'd burned through credit cards. I swallowed every bit of pride I had left and asked if I could stay in their house temporarily, just until I got back on my feet. Daphne made it clear I was unwelcome, but Marcus said yes. I think part of him still felt guilty. Those 6 months living in their mansion were designed to break me. Every small humiliation, every rule meant to remind me I was there on sufferance. And Marcus allowed all of it, even participated in some of it, because Daphne convinced him I deserved it for trying to steal from him. "This morning was my birthday," I say quietly. I woke up thinking maybe Marcus would remember. Maybe he'd soften a little. Instead, he came to my room and told me Daphne was pregnant. They needed the space. I had to leave immediately. Benjamin nods slowly. "We know. Theodore was monitoring the situation. When we learned you were being expelled today, he decided it was time to conduct the test, to see if cruelty and betrayal had made you cruel in return, or if you'd remained kind despite everything." I look at this elegant lawyer in his expensive office, and I think about that little girl on the stairs crying. I think about the bread in my purse, my last food. I think about how I didn't even hesitate to give it to her. "I don't know if I'm kind," I say honestly. "I think I'm just tired. Too tired to be anything but what I am." That, Benjamin says, is exactly what Theodore was hoping to find. Benjamin reaches into his desk drawer and pulls out a leather checkbook. The kind you don't see anymore. The kind that wealthy people still use because it carries a certain gravity that digital transfers don't. He writes something, tears out the check, and slides it across the desk to me. I look down at it. $50,000. Made out to Vivian Harper. Signed by Theodore Whitmore in shaky but legible handwriting. "This is for immediate needs," Benjamin says. "Consider it a loan if that makes you more comfortable, though Mr. Whitmore has no expectation of repayment. You need clothes, toiletries, a hotel room, food. You need to stop worrying about survival for a few days while we discuss the larger situation." I stare at the check like it might disappear if I blink. $50,000. Yesterday, that amount would have changed my entire life. Today, after everything Benjamin has told me, it feels like a test within a test. "I don't understand what he wants from me," I say carefully. "Theodore Whitmore doesn't know me. Why would he give me $50,000? Because you passed his test. Because in your darkest moment, when you had every reason to be selfish, you chose kindness instead. That matters to him more than you can possibly know." Benjamin leans forward. "Mrs. Harper, Theodore is dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. He has perhaps 6 months left, maybe less. He's spent the last 3 years searching for someone worthy of his legacy. Someone who will use his fortune not for themselves, but to help others the way he failed to help his daughter." The weight of those words settles over the room. A dying billionaire looking for redemption. A daughter lost to pride and stubbornness. And somehow, I've stumbled into the middle of his final act. He wants to meet you, Benjamin continues. Tonight, he's hosting a private dinner at his penthouse, just the two of you. He wants to hear your story in your own words, understand who you are beyond what our researchers have uncovered. After that conversation, he'll make his decision. Decision about what, exactly? I need to hear him say it clearly. About whether you become his heir, whether you receive the bulk of his $890 million estate when he passes. The number is so large it doesn't feel real. I've been living with $23 for weeks. I gave away my last piece of bread 3 hours ago, and now this stranger is talking about nearly $1 billion like it's a reasonable topic of discussion. This is insane, I whisper. People don't just give away fortunes to strangers they tested on a staircase? Theodore Whitmore does, Benjamin says simply. He has no living family except Sophia, and he's already established a trust fund that will make her financially secure for life. The rest of his fortune has no natural heir. He could leave it to charity. He's leaving substantial amounts to several causes. But the bulk of it, he wants to go to a person, someone who understands suffering, who has been betrayed and hurt but hasn't let it destroy their capacity for goodness. I think about Marcus, about the $340,000 I gave him, the trust he violated, the cruelty of throwing me out on my birthday. I think about the years I sacrificed building my career, the marriage I lost, the relationship with my son that was always broken, but I kept trying to fix anyway. What if I'm not that person? I ask. What if I'm just someone who made a stupid decision to help a crying child because I'm too exhausted to think straight anymore? Then you're exactly the person Theodore is looking for, Benjamin says. Someone who does the right thing even when they're too tired to calculate the benefit. Especially then. He stands up, indicating our conversation is reaching a transition point. The dinner is at 7 o'clock. That gives you 3 hours. I've taken the liberty of booking you a suite at the Four Seasons. Your suitcases are already being delivered there. The hotel has an excellent boutique, and I've arranged a line of credit for you to purchase anything you need for this evening. I can't accept all this, I start to say, but Benjamin holds up a hand. Mrs. Harper, please, let Theodore do this much. If after meeting him tonight you decide this isn't for you, you keep the $50,000 and walk away. No obligations. But give him the chance to explain his vision. Give yourself the chance to hear what he's offering. I look at the check again. $50,000. 3 hours ago I was wondering where I'd sleep tonight. Now I'm holding a check that could solve my immediate crisis and being told a billionaire wants to make me his heir. Okay, I hear myself say. I'll meet him. Benjamin smiles, the first real smile I've seen from him. Excellent. I'll have a car pick you up at 6:30. The dress code is business elegant, nothing too formal, but Theodore appreciates effort and respect. He pauses. And Mrs. Harper? Be yourself. Tell him the truth. He has exceptional instincts for detecting deception, and he values authenticity above all else. The car that takes me to the Four Seasons is the same Mercedes from earlier. I sit in the back seat clutching the check, watching Boston slide by through tinted windows. The last time I stayed at the Four Seasons was 4 years ago for a client meeting. I'd booked it on my corporate card, ordered room service, felt like I belonged in those elegant spaces. Now I'm arriving with 2 battered suitcases and wearing a sweater with a small stain on the sleeve that I've tried unsuccessfully to remove. The doorman doesn't blink. He welcomes me like I'm any other guest, and I wonder if Benjamin called ahead to warn them about my situation. The suite is on the 23rd floor. It's beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the public garden, a bedroom with a king bed that looks like a cloud, a bathroom with marble surfaces, and a soaking tub. I stand in the middle of the living room and feel completely displaced, like I've walked onto a stage set for someone else's life. My suitcases are already here, sitting neatly by the closet. I should unpack, shower, start getting ready. Instead, I walk to the window and look out at the city. Somewhere out there, Marcus and Daphne are in their mansion, probably celebrating that they finally got rid of me. Somewhere out there, Theodore Whitmore is preparing for our dinner, deciding whether I'm worthy of changing my entire life. I take out my phone and do something I haven't allowed myself to do in weeks. I look at photos of Marcus when he was young. There's one from his 8th birthday party. He's grinning at the camera, missing 2 front teeth, holding up a toy robot I'd bought him. I remember that day. I'd taken the afternoon off work, baked the cake myself, invited all his friends from school. Thomas was traveling for business. It was just us, and Marcus had been so happy. When did that little boy turn into the man who threw me out this morning? Or was the capacity for that cruelty always there, just waiting for the right circumstances to emerge? I close the photos and force myself to move. I need to shower, do something with my hair, find something appropriate to wear to dinner with a billionaire. The hotel boutique is still open for another hour. The shower is scalding hot, and I stand under it until my skin turns pink, washing away 3 hours of sitting on concrete stairs, washing away the humiliation of this morning. When I finally step out, I feel slightly more human, slightly more capable of handling whatever comes next. The boutique downstairs is exactly what I expected: elegant, understated, expensive. The sales associate is a woman about my age who looks at my damp hair and hotel robe without judgment. I need something for a business dinner tonight, I tell her. Something elegant but not overdone. She nods, already assessing my size and coloring. I have several pieces that would be perfect. What's your budget? I think about the line of credit Benjamin arranged. I'm not sure exactly. Something appropriate, but not excessive. She brings me options. A navy sheath dress with 3/4 sleeves, simple but well cut. A charcoal gray suit with a silk blouse. A deep burgundy dress with subtle draping that manages to be sophisticated without trying too hard. I choose the burgundy dress. It fits like it was made for me, and when I look in the mirror, I see a glimpse of the woman I used to be. Professional, pulled together, worthy of respect. Perfect choice, the sales associate says warmly. You look stunning. Would you like shoes as well? I have a pair of black pumps that would work beautifully. By the time I leave the boutique, I've spent $1,800. The number makes me slightly sick. It's more than I've spent on myself in the past 6 months combined. But Benjamin said Theodore appreciates effort and respect, and showing up to dinner looking like I just crawled off the street wouldn't demonstrate either. Back in my room, I have an hour before the car arrives. I do my makeup carefully. Subtle, elegant, not trying to look younger than I am, but enhancing what I have. My hair has dried in loose waves, and I decide to leave it down rather than pull it back. The gray-blonde color that I haven't been able to afford to touch up in months somehow looks intentional now, sophisticated rather than neglected. The dress fits perfectly. The shoes are comfortable despite the heel. I look in the full-length mirror and barely recognize myself. This morning, I was a homeless woman sitting on stairs. Tonight, I look like someone who belongs at a billionaire's dinner table. The transformation should feel good, but instead it just makes me sad. This is who I could have been if Marcus hadn't betrayed me. This is the life I had before I gave it all away for a son who threw me away like garbage. The phone in the room rings at exactly 6:20. The front desk tells me my car is waiting. I grab the small clutch I bought at the boutique. I'd forgotten I'd need a purse, and the worn bag I'd been carrying this morning would have ruined the entire look, and head downstairs. The Mercedes is waiting at the entrance. A different driver this time, professional and silent. We drive through evening traffic toward the financial district. I watch the city lights start to come on as dusk settles over Boston, and I try to calm my racing heart. What am I walking into? Is this real or some elaborate scam? Benjamin seemed legitimate. The law office was clearly established. The Four Seasons isn't in the habit of giving rooms to con artists. But the whole situation is so bizarre that part of me keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop. We pull up to a sleek residential tower, one of those new luxury buildings where penthouses sell for tens of millions. The driver comes around to open my door, and a doorman immediately appears to escort me inside. Mrs. Harper, he says with a respectful nod. Mr. Whitmore is expecting you. Please take the private elevator on the right. It will take you directly to the penthouse. The elevator is all mirrors and soft lighting. I watch myself rise through the building, this elegant stranger in a burgundy dress, and I try to remember how to breathe normally. The elevator opens directly into Theodore Whitmore's penthouse. The space is stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Boston, furnishings that whisper old money and impeccable taste, art on the walls that I suspect are originals worth small fortunes. And there, sitting in a wheelchair by the windows, is Theodore Whitmore himself. He's smaller than I expected, diminished by age and illness. His suit is impeccable, but hangs loosely on a frame that was once larger. His face is deeply lined, but his eyes are sharp, assessing, fully present. He watches me step out of the elevator with an expression I can't quite read. "Mrs. Harper," he says, and his voice is surprisingly strong for such a frail-looking man. "Thank you for coming. Please sit down. Can I offer you a drink? Wine? Scotch? Water?" "Water would be perfect," I say, and I'm relieved my voice sounds steady. A man in a crisp white jacket appears, a personal assistant or butler, I'm not sure which, and pours water into a crystal glass. He hands it to me with a small nod, then disappears into what I assume is the kitchen. Theodore gestures to a chair positioned across from him, angled so we can both see the view. I sit down, placing my clutch in my lap, trying to project a confidence I absolutely don't feel. "You're probably wondering why I asked you here," Theodore begins, and there's a hint of amusement in his eyes. "The thought crossed my mind," I admit. "Benjamin told you about Elena." "It's not a question." "Yes, I'm so sorry for your loss." "Don't be sorry. Be honest." His directness catches me off guard. "I killed my daughter as surely as if I'd pulled a trigger. My pride, my stubbornness, my refusal to accept that she might choose her own path. I destroyed my relationship with her, and when she needed me most, she was too proud to ask, and I was too stubborn to reach out first. That guilt is mine to carry." The raw honesty in his words takes my breath away. This is not a man who deals in polite fiction. "I've spent the last 15 years trying to make amends," he continues. "I raised Sophia, Elena's daughter. I've donated hundreds of millions to cancer research and treatment programs for the uninsured. I've funded scholarships for children from working-class families, but none of it brings Elena back. None of it fixes what I destroyed." He pauses to sip his own water, and I can see the effort it takes for him to hold the glass steady. 3 years ago, my doctors told me I had pancreatic cancer, stage 4, inoperable. They gave me a year at most. I've outlived that prediction through sheer stubbornness and excellent medical care, but my time is running out. He looks at me directly. "I have $690 million after all my charitable bequests, and Sophia's trust fund are accounted for. I need to decide what happens to that money when I'm gone." "Why not leave it to charity?" I ask. "Surely there are causes that matter to you." "I am leaving substantial amounts to charity, but I've come to believe that large institutions, even good ones, lose sight of individual human beings. Money becomes abstract. Statistics replace stories." He leans forward slightly. "I want my fortune to go to a person who understands suffering, someone who has been broken but hasn't become bitter, someone who will use that money to help other people who are drowning, the way my daughter drowned while I stood on the shore watching." His words hit me like a physical blow. The image is so visceral, so painful. "For 3 years I've been testing people," Theodore continues. "Sophia and I, we create scenarios. We watch how people react when they think no one is watching. And I've been disappointed again and again. People in desperate circumstances usually choose self-preservation, which is understandable, even rational, but it's not what I'm looking for." "What are you looking for?" I ask quietly. "Someone who gives away their last piece of bread to a crying child without hesitation. Someone who has every reason to be selfish but chooses kindness anyway. Someone like you, Vivian Harper." The way Theodore says my name, with certainty, like he's known me for years instead of minutes, makes me feel exposed in a way I haven't felt since this morning when Marcus threw my suitcases onto his lawn. You don't know me, I say, and I hear the tremor in my voice. You've had people research me, you set up a test, but you don't actually know who I am. What if I gave that bread to Sophia because I was too tired to eat it anyway? What if it wasn't kindness at all, just exhaustion? Do you believe that? Theodore asks. I open my mouth to say yes, but the lie won't come. Because it wasn't exhaustion. When I saw that little girl crying, my immediate thought was that she needed help and I was the only one stopping to offer it. The bread was secondary. I would have given her anything I had in that moment because she was a child in distress, and every maternal instinct I have, even the broken, battered ones that Marcus has spent years rejecting, demanded I help her. No, I admit quietly. I gave it to her because she was crying and alone, and I couldn't just walk past her. Theodore nods like I've confirmed something he already knew. Benjamin told me about your son, about the money, the betrayal, the expulsion. I need you to tell me yourself. I need to understand how you ended up on those stairs today. So I tell him. Everything. The divorce from Thomas and losing primary custody of Marcus. The years of building my consultancy while watching my relationship with my son deteriorate into polite distance. The moment 18 months ago when Marcus called saying he wanted to reconnect, wanted my help with his startup, wanted me to believe in him the way venture capitalists wouldn't. I gave him everything, I say, and my voice cracks despite my efforts to keep it steady. $340,000, my entire life savings, the equity in my apartment, my retirement accounts, all of it, because he was my son, and I thought this was our chance to finally have the relationship we'd never managed to build. Theodore listens without interrupting, his sharp eyes never leaving my face. He promised me 30% equity, told me it was a loan that would be formalized once the company had proper legal structure. I signed a handwritten receipt because he said the lawyers were drawing up real documents, that this was just temporary. I laugh bitterly. The receipt said, "Gift from Mom" at the bottom. I didn't even think about it. He was my son. Why would I think he was setting me up? Because children can be as cruel as they are beloved, Theodore says softly. Sometimes more so, because they know exactly where to strike to cause maximum pain. I nod, feeling tears threaten. When the company took off, when it was valued at $40 million, I asked about my equity. Marcus told me his lawyers said the receipt was clear. I'd given him a gift, not made an investment. He accused me of trying to retroactively change the terms, of being manipulative, of trying to take advantage of his success. You sued him, Theodore states. I tried. Spent my last savings on a lawyer who told me I had almost no case. We filed anyway, hoping Marcus would settle to avoid publicity. His legal team crushed it in preliminary hearings. I lost everything. The money I'd given him, the money I spent trying to get it back, my reputation in my industry because his wife Daphne posted all over social media about family members who fake generosity to create dependency. I take a shaky breath. I had to ask to live with them. I had nowhere else to go, no money for rent. For 6 months, Daphne treated me like a servant. Marcus let her. This morning, my 58th birthday, he told me they needed my room for Daphne's pregnancy. Gave me an hour to leave. When I asked for more time, he called security to escort me out. Theodore is silent for a long moment. When he finally speaks, his voice is heavy with understanding. And despite all that cruelty, despite every reason to be consumed by bitterness and anger, you gave your last food to a crying child you'd never met. I didn't think about it, I say honestly. I just saw her crying and I wanted to help. That's exactly my point, Vivian. He uses my first name now, and the intimacy of it feels both strange and natural. You didn't calculate. You didn't think, I've been hurt, so now I get to be selfish. You just acted from a place of fundamental decency that betrayal hasn't destroyed. That's extraordinary. I don't feel extraordinary. I feel exhausted and confused, and like I'm standing at a crossroads I don't fully understand. "What exactly are you offering me?" I asked directly. "Benjamin mentioned your estate, but he wasn't specific about what you want from me in return." Theodore's expression shifts, becomes more intense. "I'm offering you $690 million when I die, which will likely be within 6 months. In return, I want you to use that fortune to help people like my daughter, people who are drowning, who need help but are too proud or too broken to ask for it. I want you to create a foundation that finds genuinely desperate people and gives them the resources they need to rebuild their lives." The number is so staggering I can't process it. $690 million. To me. A woman who had $23 this morning. "But before I make this offer official," Theodore continues, "I need something from you. I need you to confront your son." That catches me completely off guard. "What?" "I need you to face Marcus and his wife with the truth of what they did. Not because I believe it will change them. People like that rarely change without serious consequences. But because you need closure. You need to stand in front of them with your dignity intact and make them see what they've done." His eyes bore into mine. "And I need to see how you handle that confrontation, whether you choose revenge or justice, whether cruelty has made you cruel, or whether you can remain who you are even in the face of those who hurt you most." My mind is reeling. "You want me to confront Marcus before you decide about the inheritance?" "Yes. But not alone. I'm giving you resources." He gestures to a folder on the table beside him that I hadn't noticed before. "My attorneys have spent the last 2 weeks investigating your son's company. They found emails, Vivian. Messages between Marcus and his CFO where he explicitly called your money a loan and discussed equity percentages for Mom. He documented his own fraud." I stare at the folder like it contains a bomb. "We also discovered that Daphne has been hiding her pregnancy from Marcus for 5 months. She's been planning to announce it strategically to lock in his commitment, according to messages she sent to her therapist." Theodore's voice hardens. "Your son and his wife are not good people, but how you choose to use this information, that will tell me everything I need to know about who you are." He's testing me again. This whole dinner, this offer, it's all another test. And I have no idea what the right answer is. "What if I want revenge?" I ask. "What if I want to destroy them the way they destroyed me?" "Then you'll have the resources to do it," Theodore says calmly. "The question is, what will you actually choose?" Theodore has his assistant bring dinner while I sit with the folder in my lap, unopened. It's a simple meal despite the luxury of the setting: grilled fish, roasted vegetables, a delicate salad. The kind of food someone with a dying digestive system can still manage. We eat in silence for a few minutes, and I'm grateful for the time to process what he's asked of me. "How long do I have?" I finally ask. "To decide about confronting Marcus?" "The confrontation happens tomorrow night," Theodore says, cutting his fish into tiny pieces. "I've already arranged it through Benjamin. Marcus and Daphne think they're meeting with potential investors interested in acquiring a stake in their company. They've agreed to a dinner meeting at their home. You'll arrive with Benjamin, my attorneys, and me." "You're coming?" I'm surprised. He looks so frail, I can't imagine him leaving this penthouse. "I wouldn't miss it," he says with a slight smile. "I've been watching human nature for 3 years, Vivian. I've seen people fail my tests in every way imaginable, but I've never seen someone pass and then face their betrayers with evidence of fraud in hand. This will be illuminating." I open the folder finally. Inside are printed emails, bank transfer records, text messages. I start reading, and my hands begin to shake. The first email is from Marcus to his CFO, dated 19 months ago. Mom agreed to the loan. $340K at 8% annual interest, convertible to 30% equity at my discretion once we reach Series A. Keep this off books until we formalize structure. Don't want VCs seeing family money as red flag. A loan. He called it a loan. He specified interest and equity conversion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was premeditated fraud. The next email, 3 months later. Need to restructure mom's arrangement. Daphne thinks having her as shareholder is liability for optics. Going to position initial transfer as gift and claim verbal agreement was never formal. Legal says handwritten receipt gives us cover. I feel sick, actually physically nauseated. He planned this, discussed it with lawyers, made a calculated decision to steal from me, and then gaslight me about what we'd agreed. There's more, Theodore says quietly. Keep reading. I flip through more pages, text messages between Marcus and Daphne where he admits feeling guilty about screwing over Mom, but Daphne responds, "She screwed you over your whole childhood, choosing work over you. This is karma. Besides, she gave you that money hoping to buy your love. You don't owe her anything." More texts, these between Daphne and someone named Claire, who appears to be a friend. Got Marcus to agree, Mom has to go. Told him I'm pregnant and we need her room. He's so easy to manipulate when I cry. The old bitch will be homeless by Friday and I'm recording it for content. My followers will eat this up. She recorded me being expelled. She was planning to post it on Instagram as entertainment for her followers. I closed the folder because I can't read anymore. Tears are streaming down my face and I don't even try to stop them. I'm sorry, Theodore says, and he means it. I know this is painful, but you needed to see the truth. Not the sanitized version you've been telling yourself to cope, but the actual documented truth of what they did. He hates me, I whisper. My son hates me so much, he conspired with lawyers to steal from me, and his wife wanted to film my homelessness for social media engagement. Your son is broken, Theodore corrects. Broken by his father's poison, broken by his own insecurities, broken by a toxic marriage to a narcissistic woman who feeds his worst impulses. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains it. I wipe my eyes with the cloth napkin, probably ruining the hotel boutique makeup I spent 40 minutes applying. What do you want me to do with this information? Tomorrow night, you'll sit across from Marcus and Daphne in their own home, Theodore says. Benjamin will present the evidence. You'll have the legal right to sue for fraud. The emails prove deliberate deception. You could potentially get Marcus charged criminally. At minimum, you could freeze his assets, force him to sell equity in his company to pay you back with interest, destroy his reputation in the tech industry. And if I do all that, I ask, if I crush him the way he crushed me, then you'll have your revenge, Theodore says simply. And you'll prove you're human. Anyone would want revenge in your position. The question is that what you really want? Or is there something else you're hoping for? I think about Marcus at 8 years old, missing his front teeth, so excited about a toy robot. I think about him at 14, trying to look brave when the judge gave custody to his father. I think about him 2 years ago, calling me to rebuild our relationship, and how desperate I'd been to believe him. I want my son back, I say, and my voice breaks. I want the relationship we never had. I want him to understand that I worked so hard because I loved him, not because I didn't. I want him to see me as his mother instead of an obstacle or a mark to be exploited. That may not be possible, Theodore says gently. People don't change just because we present them with evidence of their wrongdoing. Sometimes they double down. Sometimes they get angry at being exposed. Sometimes they blame everyone but themselves. Then what's the point of the confrontation, I ask. The point is for you to reclaim your dignity, Theodore says, to stand in front of the people who tried to break you and show them they failed. To offer them a choice, face legal consequences for fraud, or work to become better people. What they choose tells you who they really are. And how you frame that choice tells me who you really are. I understand now. This isn't about punishing Marcus. It's about giving him an opportunity to save himself while giving me closure either way. It's about whether I can offer grace even to someone who destroyed me, not because they deserve it, but because that's who I am. I need time to think about what I want to say to him, I tell Theodore. You have until 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, he says. Benjamin will prepare the legal documents. You'll decide how to use them. The rest of dinner passes with Theodore, telling me stories about Elena, his daughter, the woman who died because pride stood between her and the father who could have saved her. He speaks about her with such love and such devastating regret that I find myself crying again, but this time for his loss instead of my own. She was stubborn like me, he says, looking out at the Boston skyline. When she decided to marry William, her teacher, I told her she was throwing her life away. I threatened to disinherit her if she went through with it. I actually thought she'd back down. That's how arrogant I was. What happened? I ask. She married him anyway. Sent me an invitation to the wedding, probably hoping I'd show up. I didn't. I cut her off completely. Money, contact, everything. I told myself I was teaching her a lesson about consequences. His voice is raw with pain. The lesson I taught her was that my pride mattered more than her happiness, that my approval was conditional on obedience. She never contacted me again. Did you try to reach out? Not until it was too late. Not until a social worker called to tell me my daughter was dying of cancer and had listed me as next of kin because her husband didn't know who else to call. Theodore's hands are shaking now. I went to the hospital. She was unconscious by then. I sat beside her bed and I begged her to forgive me. She died 3 hours later without ever opening her eyes. The grief in the room is suffocating. I reach over and put my hand on his. This old man who has everything except the one thing that mattered. I'm so sorry, I say again, inadequate words for catastrophic loss. Don't let pride destroy your relationship with Marcus, Theodore says, gripping my hand with surprising strength. I'm not saying you should let him hurt you again. I'm not saying you should accept abuse in the name of family. But don't let your anger close the door permanently. Leave it open, even just a crack. Because if he ever wakes up and realizes what he's done, that crack might be the only way back. The next day passes in a strange, suspended state. I sleep late in the hotel suite's incredible bed, order room service for breakfast, try to prepare myself mentally for the evening ahead. Benjamin calls at noon to confirm the plan and ask if I need anything. I tell him I need to see the legal documents they're preparing. He arrives an hour later with a briefcase full of papers. There's a lawsuit for fraud, complete with the email evidence. There's a criminal complaint for theft by deception. There's a motion to freeze Marcus's assets pending investigation. There's paperwork to force an audit of his company's books. Any one of these would devastate him, Benjamin explains. All of them together would destroy his life. The choice of how many to use or whether to use any of them is entirely yours. What does Theodore think I should do? I ask. Theodore thinks you should follow your conscience, Benjamin says. But he did authorize me to tell you this. If you choose to offer Marcus a chance at redemption instead of pure punishment, he'll respect that choice. It won't disqualify you from the inheritance. In fact, it might be exactly what he's hoping to see. At 5:30, I'm dressed in the same burgundy dress from last night, reapplying the same makeup with steadier hands. I look at myself in the mirror and I barely recognize this woman. Not because of the clothes or the makeup, but because there's something different in my eyes, something harder and clearer than what was there yesterday. I'm not the broken woman sitting on stairs anymore. I'm not the desperate mother begging for scraps of affection from a son who despises her. I'm Vivian Harper, and I built a career from nothing once. I survived a devastating divorce. I survived losing my son's love. I survived betrayal and homelessness and humiliation. I can survive this too. Whatever happens tonight, I'll survive it. The Mercedes picks me up at 6. Benjamin is already in the back seat, and Theodore is there too in his wheelchair, looking frail but determined. We drive through evening traffic toward Beacon Hill in silence. Are you ready? Benjamin finally asks as we turn onto Marcus's street. No, I say honestly, but I'm doing it anyway. The mansion looks exactly the same as it did yesterday morning when I was thrown out. Beautiful, expensive, cold. The security guard who escorted me off the property yesterday is at the gate. He looks confused when he sees me getting out of the Mercedes in an elegant dress, accompanied by 2 men in expensive suits and an elderly man in a wheelchair. "Mrs. Harper," he says uncertainly, "I didn't know you were expected." "We have an appointment with Mr. and Mrs. Harper," Benjamin says smoothly. "They're expecting us." The guard checks his list, finds Benjamin's name, and opens the gate. We proceed up the circular driveway to the front entrance. My heart is pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears. Marcus opens the door himself, clearly expecting potential investors. He's wearing one of his Italian suits, hair perfectly styled, practicing his charming entrepreneur persona. When he sees me, the charm drops from his face like a mask. "What is she doing here?" he says to Benjamin, not even addressing me directly. "Mr. Harper, my name is Benjamin Ashford. I'm an attorney representing your mother and Mr. Theodore Whitmore. We have matters to discuss that require your immediate attention." Benjamin's voice is professional ice. "May we come in?" Marcus looks like he wants to slam the door, but his business instincts kick in. Theodore Whitmore is clearly wealthy, clearly important, potential investors. He steps aside reluctantly. "Daphne," he calls toward the back of the house, "we have guests." She appears from the living room wearing a designer dress that probably costs more than the entire boutique outfit I bought yesterday. When she sees me, her face twists with contempt. "You've got to be kidding me," she says. "Marcus, call security. Get her out of here." "Before you do that," Benjamin says calmly, "you should know that we have evidence of criminal fraud involving Mrs. Harper's investment in your company. We're here to offer you an alternative to prosecution. I suggest you hear us out." The word prosecution stops them both cold. Marcus's face goes pale. Daphne's eyes narrow with calculation. "I don't know what she's told you," Marcus says, "but she gave me that money as a gift. We have documentation." "We have your emails," Benjamin says quietly. "All of them, including the ones where you called it a loan and discussed equity percentages. Including the ones where you planned with your lawyers to fraudulently reclassify her investment as a gift." The silence that follows is deafening. Marcus and Daphne look at each other, and I can see panic blooming in both their faces. "I think," Theodore says from his wheelchair, speaking for the first time, "we should all sit down. This conversation requires civilized surroundings." We moved to the living room where I cleaned and dusted for 6 months while they treated me like hired help. I sit in one of the chairs I wasn't allowed to use when they had company. Theodore's wheelchair is positioned next to me. Benjamin and his associate take the sofa. Marcus and Daphne sit across from us, and they look like defendants at trial, which I suppose they are. "Vivian," Theodore says, looking at me, "the floor is yours. This is it. The moment where I decide who I am. The moment where I choose revenge or redemption, destruction or grace. I look at my son, this stranger, with my eyes, and I begin to speak. I look at Marcus sitting across from me in his expensive suit, in his expensive house built on my stolen money, and I feel a strange calm settle over me. This morning, I thought I'd never see him again. Now I'm sitting in his living room with evidence of his fraud in a folder and a billionaire beside me offering me the power to destroy everything he's built. "I gave you $340,000 18 months ago," I begin, and my voice is steady. "You called it a loan. You promised me equity. You put it in writing in emails to your CFO. Then you decided it was more convenient to call it a gift, and you had lawyers help you rewrite history." Marcus opens his mouth, but I hold up my hand. I'm not finished. For 6 months, I lived in this house under rules designed to humiliate me. I couldn't use the living room when you had guests. I had a curfew for showering. Daphne served me leftovers on plastic plates while your friends ate on china. You watched all of it happen and said nothing because she convinced you I deserved it for trying to steal from you. I looked directly at Daphne. "And you filmed me being thrown out yesterday. You were planning to post it on Instagram for your followers." Daphne's face flushes, but she doesn't deny it. We have evidence of all of this, Benjamin says, opening his briefcase. Emails documenting fraud, text messages showing premeditation, bank records proving the transfer. We can file criminal charges, we can freeze your assets, we can force an audit of your entire company. The evidence is overwhelming. What do you want? Marcus asks, and I hear fear in his voice for the first time. Money? Fine, I'll pay you back. With interest. Whatever you want. That's not what she wants, Theodore says quietly. Is it, Vivian? I look at my son, and I think about the little boy with missing teeth who loved toy robots. I think about the teenager who tried to look brave when the judge chose his father. I think about all the ways I failed him, and all the ways he failed me, and all the broken pieces of a relationship that was never whole to begin with. I want you to have a choice, Marcus, I say. The same choice Theodore's daughter never got, because he was too proud to offer it and she was too proud to ask. I pull out the documents Benjamin prepared. Option 1. We file all of these. Criminal fraud charges, civil lawsuit, asset freeze. Your company gets dragged through investigations. Your reputation in the tech world is destroyed. Even if you're not convicted, the publicity ruins you. Daphne's Instagram followers get to watch your downfall in real time. Marcus is breathing fast, almost hyperventilating. Daphne has gone very still. Option 2, I continue. You pay me $500,000 within 30 days. That's my initial investment plus interest and compensation for the 6 months of hell you put me through. You issue a public apology, not on social media, but to the people in our industry who Daphne convinced I was a manipulative parasite. And you agree to 2 years of family therapy with me, weekly sessions. No excuses, no cancellations. That's it? Marcus says, disbelief in his voice. That's all you want? No, there's more. I take a breath. You also agree to couples therapy with Daphne. Because she's 5 months pregnant and hiding it from you, planning to announce it strategically to lock in your commitment. I slide another document across the coffee table. We have her text messages to her therapist. Marcus turns to Daphne with a look of absolute betrayal. You're pregnant? For 5 months and you didn't tell me? I was waiting for the right time, Daphne stammers. I wanted to... You wanted to manipulate me, Marcus says, and I can see something cracking in him. That's what you do. You manipulated me into throwing out my own mother. You manipulated me into treating her like garbage. You've been manipulating everything. If you choose option 2, I continue, pulling his attention back to me, you also have to understand something. I'm not doing this because I forgive you. I'm doing this because you're my son, and somewhere under all this damage is the boy I raised. The therapy is your chance to find him again. To understand why you became someone who could do what you did. To decide if you want to be that person for the rest of your life. Theodore leans forward slightly. And if you complete 2 years of therapy, genuinely engage with it, not just show up, there will be additional benefits. A trust has been established that will provide $100 million to you and your child, but only if you demonstrate real change, real effort to become a better person. Marcus's eyes go wide. 100 million? Conditional on transformation, Theodore interrupts. I don't give money to people who remain broken. I invest in people willing to heal. The choice is yours. I watch my son process this. $500,000 now, plus the possibility of 100 million later if he does the work to fix himself, versus criminal charges and professional destruction. Why? Marcus asks me, and his voice cracks. Why would you give me a second chance after what I did? Because 15 years ago, Theodore Whitmore didn't give his daughter a second chance, I say. She died without reconciliation because pride stood on both sides. I don't want that to be our story. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering if you could have changed if I'd only given you the opportunity. Tears are running down Marcus's face now. I don't deserve this. No, I agree. You don't. But that's the thing about grace, Marcus. It's not about deserving. It's about choosing to be the person who offers it anyway. There's a long silence. Daphne is staring at her hands, her perfect Instagram facade completely shattered. Marcus is crying openly, and I realize I haven't seen him cry since he was a child. "I'll do it," he says finally. "The therapy, the apology, all of it. I'll pay you back and I'll do the work." "We'll need it in writing," Benjamin says, already pulling out contracts. "Legally binding agreements. If you violate the terms, the criminal charges remain an option." Marcus nods. "I understand." While Benjamin handles the paperwork, I look at Daphne. "You should leave," I tell her quietly. "This house, this marriage, all of it. You're not good for him and he's not good for you. Whatever you're performing for Instagram isn't a real life." "You can't tell me what to do," she says, but there's no fire in it. "No, I can't," I agree. "But I can tell you that if you stay and continue poisoning my son's mind, I will make it my personal mission to expose every manipulative thing you've done. Every lie, every scheme, every bit of manufactured content. I have resources now." I glance at Theodore. "Significant resources. Your choice." 3 months later, I'm sitting in Theodore's penthouse again. He's weaker now, spending most of his time in bed, but his mind is still sharp. We've been working together on the foundation that will bear his daughter's name, the Elena Whitmore Foundation for people in desperate circumstances who need a hand up, not a handout. Marcus and I have had 8 therapy sessions so far. They're brutal. He's angry about his childhood, about my absences, about feeling second to my career. I'm angry about the theft, the betrayal, the cruelty. Our therapist makes us sit with that anger, examine it, understand where it comes from. It's not fixed. It might never be fully fixed. But Marcus showed up to every session. He paid me the $500,000 within 3 weeks, liquidating some of his company stock to do it. He issued apologies to my former colleagues. He's trying. Daphne divorced him and moved to Los Angeles to pursue influencer opportunities. Their son, Marcus named him William, after Theodore's son-in-law, in a gesture that made me cry, will be born in 4 months. Marcus is terrified and determined to be a better father than his father was, which means breaking cycles that go back generations. Theodore called me to his bedside this morning. His lawyer was there with final documents. "I'm updating my will today," Theodore says, his voice barely above a whisper. $690 million to you when I die, which my doctors assure me will be within weeks now. The foundation is yours to run. Sophia's trust is secured. Marcus's conditional trust is established. "I don't know how to thank you," I say, holding his hand. "Don't thank me. Earn it. Find people like my daughter, like you were 3 months ago. People who are drowning. Throw them a rope." He smiles weakly. "And Vivian? What you did with Marcus, offering grace instead of revenge, that told me everything I needed to know. You passed the real test." Theodore dies 6 days later, peacefully in his sleep with Sophia and me at his bedside. The funeral is small, private, just the people who actually loved him rather than the society figures who would have come for appearances. His will is read the following week. I inherit everything he promised, $690 million, the foundation, the responsibility of using it well. Marcus comes to the will reading. Afterward, he pulls me aside. "Mom," he says, and it's the first time he's called me that in years. "I need to tell you something. In therapy yesterday, I finally admitted the truth. I knew what I was doing when I took your money. I knew it was fraud. I did it anyway because I was angry at you, and Daphne told me you deserved it, and I wanted to believe her because it meant I didn't have to feel guilty." "I know," I say quietly. "I'm so sorry." He's crying again. "I destroyed you because of childhood resentment I never dealt with. I almost destroyed myself too. If you hadn't offered me that second chance—" "But I did," I interrupt, "and you took it. That's what matters now. Not what you did, but what you're choosing to do differently." He hugs me then, awkward and tentative, but real. It's not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever completely. But it's a beginning. Today I'm sitting in my new office at the Elena Whitmore Foundation. We've already identified our first 20 recipients, people in desperate circumstances who demonstrate genuine character. A single mother who gave her last meal to a homeless veteran. An elderly man who used his disability check to buy school supplies for his neighbor's kids. A woman who quit her job to care for her dying sister's children. We're going to change their lives, give them the resources they need to rebuild. Offer them the kind of grace that Theodore showed me. My phone rings. It's Marcus. We have therapy in an hour, and he's confirming he'll be there. I'll be there too, I tell him. I look out the window at Boston, spreading below me, and I think about sitting on those stairs 3 months ago with 2 suitcases and $23. I think about giving my last bread to a crying child because it was the right thing to do, even when I had nothing. Sometimes kindness is its own reward. But sometimes, rarely, miraculously, kindness opens doors you never knew existed. Doors to redemption, restoration, and second chances you never thought possible. I gave away a piece of bread and received a fortune. But more than that, I received the chance to help others the way Theodore helped me. To break cycles of cruelty and pride. To choose grace even when revenge would be justified. That, I'm learning, is the real inheritance. Not the money, but the choice to be someone who builds bridges instead of burning them. Someone who offers hope instead of despair. Someone who remains kind even when the world gives every reason not to be.